into it. For those of you watching on YouTube, please subscribe to the channel, like the video, drop your comments down below, share it if you can. We obviously engage with people on there, and any kind of engagement helps us massively with the algorithm. So please, like I said, subscribe to the channel, like the video, drop your comments down below. For those listening on Spotify, Apple, or any of the podcasting platforms, please follow, give us a 5-star review. That obviously helps us on the audio platforms as well. But yeah, we'll get into it then. Obviously, we've got to start with City Arsenal 2-2. It was a game of two halves, I'm not going to lie. First half, first half you could probably split into two halves as well and do it by quarters, because I think the first quarter of the match, Man City started like a house on fire. They were coming at you guys and pressing really high. And obviously then Gundogan has that chance on the volley, which he probably should do better. And then Haaland scores after some really great stuff by Savinho, who kind of spins away from Calafiori and then slides a through pass between Gabriel and Saliba for Haaland to tuck away. And I'm not going to lie, it was looking like Man City were, meaning business, and it was going to be a difficult game for you guys. And I actually think City scoring probably helped the game, and especially that first half kind of become a lot more open, because you guys couldn't sit back and kind of do the Housery style tactics that maybe people were expecting you to do away at City. And yeah, man, you reacted beautifully. Got right back in the game. Obviously, I think he kind of changes a little bit on Rodri with that injury. I'm guessing that galvanizes you guys a little bit. Calafiori scores a beautiful goal, curled it into the side netting after a quick free kick. We'll get into that because there was a bit of controversy around that one. And then Gabriel scores his customary header from a corner. Great delivery. He absolutely sends Kyle Walker, who I think is at some point trying to tickle him. We talked about how Van Dijk was tickling our captain in that embarrassing defeat to Liverpool. But yeah, Kyle Walker tries to tickle Gabriel. Doesn't work out for him, unfortunately. He scores from a great header. And then in injury time, the real controversial point, Trossard gets sent off, or second yellow card for delaying the restart. But yeah, we'll get into all of those talking points in a bit. But second half is basically attack versus defence. You're playing a 5-4/6-3 formation. No shame in the game, but we'll talk about that as well in a bit. City didn't really look like they were creating too many chances, to be honest, man. I'll be interested to get your opinion. But I'm a neutral. I would have felt quite comfortable in that until obviously the last minute. I think the quick corners played, and a couple of your defenders don't get out to block the cross coming in. I think it's from Grealish. Kovacic gets a shot blocked, and then Stones is there to tap home the late equaliser. And yeah, ends 2-2. But first of all, Johns, let's get your opinion on the game. What did you make of it? Obviously, a game of two halves. And before we get into the big controversial points, what's your overall take on the game?
I think it was a great game up until the sending off, and then I think from there it kind of changed into almost a war of attrition kind of thing. It was kind of a bit of a slog after that, and obviously all in one direction. But it's not like it created good football. I don't know anybody who likes to just watch one team basically stick 10 men on the goal line and another team just try and punch it past them. Like, it's not an enjoyable game to watch. So I think, up until, what was it, the 8th minute of what was supposed to be a 6-minute added time in the first half, up until then, it was a great game. It was pretty open. Both teams were kind of going at it. It was almost the opposite of what you'd expect from an Arsenal Man City game based off of the last few times that we've played each other. Really open, and I agree with you. I think their first goal really opened it up and kind of forced us to come out and do something. And I mean, they scored in like the 9th minute. So from that 9th minute goal until basically the sending off at the end of the first half stoppage time, the game was really open, and it was really exciting. And I think we held our own. Going 2-1 up, I have to say, is not what I expected after that first Erling Haaland goal goes in. So I've got to applaud us for doing so well. But I mean, from there onwards, there's not really very much to say. We did what I'm going to argue pretty much any team would try to do with 10 men against bloody Man City at the Etihad. Usually I think most teams would concede almost immediately when that happens. And then it doesn't really matter how they play from there, because then Man City go on and run away with the game. So for people to be kind of calling us out for parking the bus, it must be working, right? Like you only say parking the bus if it's successful, like if you actually get away with something. And I think we actually were pretty much getting away with it up until that late goal at the end. So overall, great game up until the sending off, and then then Michael Oliver decided to be the star of the show.
Yeah, bloody hell. Michael Oliver, I was watching another content creators podcast earlier, and they listed out all the Michael Oliver and City incidents where he's tended to go in their direction. And boy, it's a bit fishy. Let's put it that way, but I don't want to get in trouble. So we'll stick away from that side of things. And let's focus on the actual sending off then, because I think before then, I know there's some stuff about, all right, let's actually start with the Calafiori goal, because let's do it in chronological order. There's some people on the City side, and I know Kyle Walker and Pep came out afterwards talking about how it was an unfair situation because the referee called Kyle Walker over to have a conversation, and then Thomas Partey takes a quick free kick. And the argument from their side is that Kyle Walker's out of position and he's not able to go out to Martinelli and has a huge disadvantage. Not of their kind of making. What do you make of that? Do you think the goal was fair, or do you think Kyle Walker and Man City have a bit of an argument?
I'm going to be honest with you, like when I heard it first from Pep, I actually kind of understood a little bit, and I was really on their side. I did think, maybe it was harsh for Michael Oliver to call a player over and then let the other team essentially just take a really quick free kick after that. So I was really much very much on their side until I watched the replay. And I've watched the replay multiple times now, and he has at least 10 seconds between when he's dismissed by the referee and when the ball is taken by Thomas Partey to get back. And I think if you stop it, and there's a screenshot I just sent to you, Ant, obviously, of the exact moment that Thomas Partey strikes the ball, Kyle Walker is deeper than Gabriel Martinelli. So I don't understand what we mean by he's out of position, because he's tucked in, sure, but he's deeper than Gabriel Martinelli and maybe 1 yard ahead of his other defenders, and also deeper than I think the DM at the time as well. So they've got 5 guys back, and he's had plenty of time. And instead of going back and focusing on watching the ball and making sure he's in the right position, he's doing mind game gestures to his centre back. So I was with them for a long time, because I want to try and be fair here, and I think Michael Oliver is generally a bit of a stinker. I do think that when he stinks, he generally does it in the favour of Man City, but I'm sure he just stinks in general. So I can understand if he screws everyone over a little bit as well. But then as soon as I watched it back, I'm going to be honest with you, I might be on his side for once. I actually don't think it really affected anything. And let's be honest, Martinelli gets the ball. It's not like he just goes on an absolute crazy, Sonic the Hedgehog run straight to the goal and bangs it into the top corner. He cuts back. He's got plenty of time. Man City have got plenty of time to recover. And Calafiori slaps it into the top corner, which I don't think it would have made any difference to the play had Kyle Walker been sitting on his bloody 18-yard box. I don't think it makes any difference. So from my point of view, I think it's a poor excuse. And I think it's just an excuse so that we can all cover up the fact that Kyle Walker is past it and that Rico Lewis should have been starting for that game.
Yeah, no, I agree, man. At the beginning, I didn't really see anything around it, and the argument seems to make sense, right? Like logically, it seems like something that could be possible. But yeah, when you sent me the screenshot, when I saw the clip, I was like, okay, maybe he is actually out of position in that ideally he wouldn't have been tucked in. Maybe he would have been out, to Martinelli and would have been closer to him if the quick free kick wasn't taken. But I'm sorry, quick free kicks are allowed. Quick free kicks are allowed. Sometimes they are allowed. Like they're not always allowed. Some referees don't allow them. Some referees do. Sometimes it's a situational thing. I don't think you can complain too much about that, I'm afraid. Otherwise, I feel like every other quick free kick, the complaints around it would have been valid.
And we should just stop
all
quick free kicks, right? Like that's the point.
Just
get your ass back in your position.
and if you're not, and the referee allows play to play on, that's kind of his prerogative. So yeah, I'm not sure about that one. I think it's a bit of sodium. Let's be honest. It's some MSG levels of salt there. And I think it's mainly down to Kyle Walker having a stinker. He was not good in that game, and I can't remember.
Some could argue he was at fault for both goals.
Yeah, I can't. Well, I mean, definitely the Gabriel one. It's his man. He loses, and then yeah, the first one. I guess he's not touch tight to Martinelli, and then I'll be honest, that one is probably less of his fault, just because I feel like we need to give more credit to Calafiori. That
Yeah, of
finish was
course.
unbelievable. You know, I think him passing it to Calafiori on the edge of the box shouldn't have been a guaranteed goal. So I don't know how much blame you can give Walker, but I think, yeah, he's had a stinker here in this game, and I can't remember a game where he's been really good for a while now. So yeah, we may be heading into the twilight of his career, which is totally fair. He's in his like mid-30s. And yeah, maybe it's time for Rico Lewis or someone else to start a right back, maybe even a Kanji. But okay, yeah, I think we can move on from the Calafiori one, because I think we can all agree that that one is a bit of a stretch, a bit of a reach from their side. Let's get to the Trossard one then, because I think this one will be the one where we're going to have more passion coming in from you, at least.
More passion,
So Trossard
more energy.
was trash. Yeah, exactly. Trossard's given a yellow for, I think, quite a soft foul initially, the first yellow, right? And I think that's probably where more people are angry, kind of with the combination of the two yellow cards both being quite soft. Then the second one is for, originally I thought it was for the body check on Bernardo, but then he doesn't seem to give anything. Then he kind of like calls for the free kick, but he doesn't, go for his pocket to pull out the yellow for that foul. And then it seems quite obvious that he's given it for delaying the restart, Trossard kind of kicking the ball away. I've seen some Arsenal fans, and the only thing I'll argue, just quickly before I flip it over to you, John, is that some Arsenal fans have said he was trying to play the ball to Martinelli, and I don't think that's true. I think the way he strikes the ball, I don't think he is trying to play the ball to Martinelli. I think he's kind of kicking it away in half, like, trying to kind of maybe cover it up as that's what he's trying to do, but half also just trying to kick it away with a bit of anger because he doesn't think that it's a foul. So I don't know if that's really a valid excuse, but I think there is definitely credence to the whole argument around being consistent with that kind of punishment for kicking the ball away, because there were obviously other incidents in the game. I think the Doku one is the one that a lot of Arsenal fans are pointing to as being something quite similar. But yeah, what's your take on it all? Do you think these yellow cards for delaying the restart are understandable? Are you going to go letter by the letter of the law, or do you think it's more unfair treatment on Arsenal's part?
Where to start? All right, I'm going to be honest with you. I think the first challenge, I think it was a bit of a soft yellow, but I can kind of understand it. I think the second one, I think it was stupid of him to even go in and try and barge anybody like that. I don't think that was a yellow either, but I could see why. I'd have less argument, I think, if the PGMOL came out and said actually it was for him pushing my man onto the floor. So I think that was a stupid thing to do in the first place, and I'm going to concede that to all the fans out there that are trying to keep the focus on Trossard and not on anything else, right? Because that's really what rival fans have been trying to do with a lot of this, right? With the Rice one and then now with the Trossard one, everyone's just focused on the player. Did the player do the right thing? If he didn't, he's got no one to blame other than himself, right? Which is fair enough. I think that is one part of the argument, and that's where I'm going to agree with them. I think the challenge was a stupid idea. But I'm going to be honest with you, I do not think he was kicking the ball away intentionally, right? I know people are going to cry and get their, tell me to get my violins out. But if there's 0.8 seconds between the whistle and him kicking the ball, and he's not facing the referee, so he's got no visual cue to say, on arms up before the whistle goes, he's got a whistle in his mouth. He's got no visual cues. So he's literally having to hear it, react, and then stop himself from kicking the ball, right? I genuinely don't think it was his idea to smash it as far up as possible. And I think that this whole, the fact that what you've just said and what Paul Merson said on the coverage about, I am certain that he was not trying to play it to Martinelli. I don't think anyone can say that with any kind of confidence, because I'm sorry to say,
not certainty.
But if that play went on, would Martinelli have got that ball?
I mean, it didn't look like he was trying to play it to him from what I saw.
No, but my
you're right.
argument is if you watch where the ball goes and where Martinelli was getting that ball, right? So
yeah, I mean,
if we want to
I,
say that we don't believe that he kicked it over, that's totally fine. But the evidence is just as strong in favor of him actually doing that as it is outside of that. And I get your point. Maybe it looks technically like he wouldn't have done that, but there have been plenty of players who dink balls over the top. And I don't want to look at technique because 0.8 seconds, right? He hears the whistle midway through kicking it. So if the whistle had not gone, maybe he would have kicked it in a different way. He would have travelled it or outside of the foot over the top for Martinelli to run onto. So I don't think that is a valid excuse for us to start not jumping to conclusions, but just drawing a conclusion that if he wasn't trying to play it to Martinelli, then the only other alternative is he was trying to kick it away. And I think that is a stupid argument to make, right? And before you interrupt me, I get you, right? I know I'll give you a chance to get back, right? But my point is, it's not as black and white as that. It's not he was trying to play the ball or he was trying to kick it away. There's somewhere in the middle. And I personally think it's somewhere in the middle. I think had the whistle not gone, the ball that he was trying to play would have been to Martinelli. But the fact that the ball did go made it look very much like he was just hammering it, to be honest with you, right? But if you look at the trajectory of where the ball went and where it ended up and where Martinelli was, he would have got onto that ball and it would have been a breakaway and we would have been basically one-on-one. Maybe not one-on-one with the keeper, but there would have been one defender back. So from my point of view, I don't think that is a good enough argument to make that he is kicking the ball away and that he should get a yellow card for it, especially given the fact that the player is still down on the floor and the fact that had he not kicked it, they wouldn't have been able to take a quick one anyway. They would have had to go and grab the ball, bring it back to where the actual foul was, and then take it. So what time is being wasted? What advantage have they lost? It wasn't a breaking chance. We had like 8, 9, 10 men behind the ball. What were they going to be able to do with that? And that's my whole point. These rules were created to say about advantages, right? Like, oh, you're stopping them from having momentum, or you're stopping them from doing something that would have allowed them to gain an advantage, and you've now gained an advantage from stopping them from doing that. I'm sorry to say, this implementation of this rule is not in good faith of why that rule was created. So I actually think if you were going to give him a yellow card for the push, I'd be fine with it. And I'd actually say totally fine. We'll move on. But the fact that it was given for kicking the ball away again, when we've seen so many instances of them not implementing that rule consistently for everyone, is disgusting. Arsenal are the actual, I think at this point in time, there's been like maybe 3 or 4 cards or whatever else it was given for this. And like 3 of them have gone to Arsenal. And 1 of them to the rest of the 20 teams or whatever it is. It's extremely unbalanced. And I don't care what anybody wants to say about whether we waste more time than anyone else. Do you genuinely think that Arsenal waste time at 50% of the entire league? Like we take up 50% of all time being wasted in the league and all of those delayed restarts. There's no way that statistically makes any sense. So from my point of view, it absolutely stinks. When you look at Doku, when you look at Bernardo, those 2 just doing the exact thing that Trossard got a yellow card for, getting away with it. Look at Szoboszlai doing it last week with the same, funnily enough, the same referee. He did it last week, kicked it low cross into the middle of the box. No punishment. It's disgusting, right? We've done it 3 times, got a yellow card every single time we've done it, right? Everybody else has done it probably 100 times in total and maybe got punished twice. Honestly, it just doesn't make any sense to me. So, yeah, you can say what you want to say about like he didn't look like he was kicking it to Martinelli, but I just genuinely think that is just a deflection away from the point of all of this, which is there was no real advantage to gain from doing that. And 0.8 seconds is not enough time, even for an elite athlete, to try to change their entire body shape and trajectory of where they're trying to kick a ball.
No, I agree. I think the truth is just that I don't think that is a rule that ever needed to come into play. And I've heard people say that, and I totally agree with this, delaying the restart thing. Is it something that we really needed to, is it something that was plaguing football and that football needed to completely eradicate with this extreme kind of no tolerance, yellow card approach? I don't think it is. And I heard Gary Neville, I heard a bunch of other people also mention that. So I think my whole thing is, I don't know. I think it's inconclusive whether or not Trossard kicks the ball away or whether he's trying to play it to Martinelli. I think from someone who watches football and has seen Trossard play, you would assume that he would have been able to find Martinelli with a better ball, and the way that he strikes it would make you feel like he's kind of lashing out. But at the same time, bro, to be honest, I don't think either way it should be something punished by a yellow card. And I feel like this whole approach is just very weird, and it hasn't been communicated well to fans, which is part of the reason why I think we're so outraged by it. And because of the manager's reaction and the players' reaction, it makes me feel like they haven't had this communicated to them either, or it hasn't been communicated well. Because if it is something that's going to be a new implementation or approach, you would expect the players to be like, okay, fair enough. I can't complain. If you're going to take a zero tolerance approach to this, Rice, Trossard, even if they're harsh, if you're going to go big on it, at least you've communicated to us before the season starts, and we need to know that we're running a risk by doing that. And I think some fans are taking the approach that they're assuming that the players know, and therefore they're giving the players, like, for example, the blame, Rice, etc., all these guys, and saying, you should, use your common sense, you're giving the referee the chance. But to be honest, beforehand, in years gone by, I feel like it would be extremely harsh to blame the players for this because, there is a 50-50 call. But it's the way that this seems to be implemented, it's just being done really poorly. And so it seems and feels like Arsenal are bearing the brunt of it. And then every week we're seeing Szoboszlai, who's it? There's been loads of others, in the same game. It was happening to you with Brighton, João Pedro. You had it happen in this game. Bernardo did it. Doku did it. And the whole thing just feels like it's too grey to take this kind of zero tolerance approach to in the first place. So I don't think it was a smart decision on the PGMOL's side to do that in the first place. And second of all, I don't think there's any grave need. I've seen some other fans talk about how they're adding extra time to the matches. And we were told a few years ago that was going to be the approach to avoid time wasting. Go ahead and try and time waste. We're going to add on minutes, and it's going to be 15 minutes added on. If you do that kind of approach. So my whole thing is, I think a lot of fans were okay with that. And we accepted that was going to be a way that, that you're not going to get away with it, mate. So you can kick the ball away, you can do whatever, you can roll around on the floor, but we're going to add on 15 minutes onto the end or whatever, and you're going to still end up playing the same amount of time that you should have. I feel like that was fine. And so I don't know why they've decided to still add 7 minutes onto every half like they did in the City game. And then also take a zero tolerance approach. I just don't think it makes sense. So yeah,
but that's why I believe it's not about time wasting. It's about advantage gained or lost. Because if you think about it in terms of time wasting, we got away with plenty of time wasting. And I'm not going to come out and lie here. David Raya went down every 5 minutes, right? Our defenders went down every 5 minutes. Jurriën Timber went down. Gabriel Martinelli went down. We just dropped on the floor every 5 minutes if we needed to, right? To slow the game down. And there is currently no way to stop you from doing that because everyone's like, oh, we might be injured. We've got to give him a chance, right? But there is absolutely no way to stop anybody from doing that. So from my point of view, the whole time wasting thing was entirely solved by adding extra time on. So the fact that that's why I believe that this rule that they're doing with the no kicking the ball away thing is about momentum shifts and about how you can kind of stop an attack from happening if you kind of get in the way of the ball. And I know players used to do that basically last time before, right? If somebody was going to take a quick free kick, they just stand in front of it. The player would kick it at them and then get the player that got the ball kicked at them would just get a yellow card, right? And I think that they're now just saying, okay, not only if you stand in front of the ball, but if you touch the ball of any kind after I've blown the whistle and it's deemed to be, delaying the restart, I'm going to give you a yellow card. And that's, again, where I'm saying that was not done in the spirit of that actual rule. Because from a time wasting perspective, it probably wasted 10 seconds of time in comparison to David Raya going down for 5 minutes, right? So what are we, we're stepping over dollars, $100 bills to pick up nickels, essentially, right? We're worried about the tiny little things that add 5 seconds on and not the massive things that add 5 minutes on. Doesn't make any sense. If they're doing it about the momentum advantage thing, I think that there was no advantage or momentum shift gained from what Trossard did. And then again, I think the rule was implemented against the spirit of why it was created. And that again is my issue.
No, yeah, okay, I also agree with that. But the thing is, if they're gonna do the rule, if they're gonna decide, right, at the end of the day,
Consistency,
we
please.
don't have a say in it. Just do it consistently, for God's
Yeah.
sake. At least, like we talked about with the Rice one, at least in the same game, referee the match the same way. And
Yes.
okay,
Set the
if there's
precedent.
if the referees are all going to have their own little quirks and their own little like things that they hold more closely or they're more strict with or more lenient with, and I think all of us can kind of get down with the program with that as long as things don't deviate too much from referee to referee and from game to game. But at least in the same bloody game, just referee the thing the same way. And if you're going to use all this nuance for other cases, then why don't you apply nuance to these cases where you have given yellow cards? That's my whole thing. Because
Yeah.
I've seen think pieces go on why Doku's wasn't a yellow card, and I just can't. I don't think that stands up well to or stands up better to why Trossard shouldn't get a yellow card. I think they've both got their reasons why they shouldn't get a yellow card for things. Why is one being applied in a certain way and one being applied in a different way? It's just rubbish, and I think they're gonna have to tweak it. They're gonna
Yeah.
have to. Like it's happening too
Now that it's
consistently now,
affected the
and
title
people are
race,
picking onto it.
now that there we've had some big effects after these first 5 games of a team that's challenging for the title having two pretty key players sent off. Now we're going to change it and we're going to say, oh, you know what? Actually, we were wrong about that. It's okay. Sorry, Arsenal. You've lost a little bit. You've gained no advantage, and in fact, you've actually been hindered a little bit. But it's all right. We all do this every season. Do you remember last season when they did it with everyone crowding around the referee, and they were just like, anybody that comes around me is getting a yellow card. And then 5 games into it, they said, you know what? That we don't like that rule anymore. After people have gained a bunch of yellow cards, and now you're getting people that get
Yeah.
a game suspension after 5 yellows. It's the same old. I don't get why they do it. It just makes them look incompetent and really yellow bellied, that they can't follow through on anything, and that they're almost like, that they've got such a low attention span that they just move on to something else after 5 games.
Well, I think things are kind of dictated to them to a little bit to give them some cop out. IFAB decides on certain tweaks on certain rules, but then the Premier League have the choice, and the PGMOL have a choice as to what they want to implement, which I guess
they can ignore them
is the part
until the end of the
point,
season.
and they have done with the semi-automated stuff. They chose not to bring that in. They've taken the initial part of VAR was horrendous, if you remember that, like because we wanted to do it our way, and it was just a stark difference between how VAR was applied in Europe and in international competitions and.
But didn't we stick to that for the entirety of last season? They changed it this season by bringing the semi-automated offsides in, but we stuck to a stupid way of refereeing for VAR the whole of last season.
Yeah.
All of the bad implementations, all of the bad implementations we keep forever, and all of the good implementations we say, you know what? After 5 games, I don't care about it anymore. Let's move on to something else. What?
They. You know what is very obvious, because this has happened with the crowding and other things where they've had to tweak it mid-season, is they haven't done enough testing on this during the off-season to actually see how it will work in real life. And this is always going to be the problem we have with the refereeing rules and rules of the game and etc. Is it's a lot of theoretical stuff, and you have to implement them, and you have to trial them, and you have to test them. And I think
you've got to see the edge cases.
Before you go out in the big Premier League and where it's high stakes for everyone, go and actually just like guinea pig the shit out of these different rules. You've got to do it beforehand. You can't let it happen in high stakes games of this magnitude, because that's what can happen. You might be unlucky and you might have an incident or a couple of incidents happen in a big high profile game, and then you look like a donut. So the PGMOL as a whole look like they don't know what they're doing, and there's all this incompetence. And I don't believe they are to that level. I do believe there are some good people involved in it, but I just feel like it's not. They're not learning their lessons, shining through. and they're not improving things at a quick enough rate to a high enough level to stay on par and match the product on the pitch. And there's an issue, and sadly, the Trossard one I think is another example of that, and it affected the game. And I think people have mentioned the Kovacic incident on Odegaard last season at the Emirates, where I think mic'd up Howard Webb came out and said and shared the audio of how basically, I think again that was Michael Oliver,
It
was
was.
saying that he didn't want to ruin the game by making a decision based, on like a split second decision that would have sent one of the teams down to 10 men. And sadly, for this incident, he didn't take the same or have
It
the
was
same
fine.
approach. Yeah, it was fine, and it completely did ruin the heck out of that game because the whole second half became, like I said, five, a 5-4 formation or a 6-3 formation, and it became attack versus defense. So yeah, I think this is going to rumble on from week to week, and unfortunately, it did impact this game massively. And I think I can see where people are coming from on both sides, but I can understand how Arsenal fans feel severely aggrieved because it's residual impact. It's like it's happening too often now, and in like short space of time where these kind of incidents seem to be affecting you guys more than anyone else. Like you said, more than 50% of these yellow cards for these types of incidents have happened to Arsenal. So that doesn't seem fair in a league of 20 teams, right? Let's get on to, I guess, the next big talking point, which some people have been going on and basically said there's a big chance that Arsenal could have played that defensively, even with 11 men. What do you think on this? Do you think that this is just people kind of running with this a Mikel Pulis agenda, or do you think there's a possibility you guys could have played that way anyway?
I mean, there's always a possibility that we could have played that way anyway. But I'm just sorry. I'm sorry that people have that to say when we played aggressive, I would say pretty attacking football for the first 53 minutes. So the fact that everyone's just like jumping straight to the conclusion that we were going to park the bus regardless is mental. Because if you look at let's say the 5 or 6, 7 minutes between between Gabriel scoring and between Trossard getting sent off, I don't remember us sticking 11 men behind the ball and sitting on the edge of our 18-yard box, right? So if that's the truth, if they thought that we were going to park the bus anyway, why wouldn't we have done it immediately after Gabriel scored the second goal for us? So from my point of view, the probability was higher that we were at least for the first 25 minutes after half time, we're going to come out and play normal football, right? What I would consider to be balanced football. We're going to come out, pass the ball around, try and keep high possession, but also be defensively sound. And then I could see, yes, from 70th minute onwards, yes, we might have parted the bus a bit, but we're 2-1 up at the Etihad, against our biggest rivals for the title. I would expect us to park the bus, and I'm pretty certain most other teams would park the bus or at least get a bit more defensive, particularly if they knew that their defense was arguably the best in the league, right? So from my point of view, it's a stupid argument to make. Of course, Tottenham wouldn't park the bus because their defense is absolute. They can't park the bus. There's no bus to park. They've literally got like a 3-wheel only fools and horses car to stick in front of in the parking space. There's no point in sticking that and parking the 3-wheeler, the tricycle. There's no point, right? If it was Mourinho's Chelsea, who were defensively very solid, they probably would have. If it was one of Fergie's defensively solid teams, Rio and Vidic, they probably would have, right? When it got to 70th, 80th minute. So I don't want to hear this argument that we're supposed to go to the Etihad and absolutely slap the shit out of them 5-1 and never stop attacking as if this is bloody Liverpool against Man United. No, because they'll probably also calm down and anyway, I'm rattled. But I just think it's a stupid argument to make, right? And the fact that it's even worse that we actually did go a man down and then everyone's saying that we're playing Pulis ball with 10 men against Man City. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? How else are we supposed to play? And not only that, who got sent off? Arguably our best goal scorer. We literally lost Trossard, who right now is the only person in our team that can put the ball into the back of net outside of Saka. And then when we got rid of Trossard, when Trossard came off, we had to bloody take Saka straight off. So we had 2 of our best goal scorers in that team not on the pitch. And you want us to go bloody gung-ho at it and go crazy. In what world does that make any sense? And this actually goes to show why, outside of Liverpool, really, no one else is going to beat them at the Etihad, right?
Liverpool didn't beat them at the Etihad either, let's be honest.
Exactly. And when Liverpool played them with 10 men, what was the score, Ant?
You got hammered
back in
5-0 or
2016,
5-1
17.
or something. Yeah.
They got battered 5-0.
Yeah.
So no wonder Man City fans are coming out and saying that we parked the bus, because they want us to be good little boys and pat us on the head after they slap us 6-0. But we're not going to do that. And you can show it through all of the saltiness of all their players afterwards.
Come on, man. This is a regular pattern. Let's not beat around the bush. And I've heard Liverpool fans say the same thing. You know, when we got a 0-0 where we didn't even park the bus, but they accused us of parking the bus at Anfield last season.
And Van Dijk was salty, saying that you guys were anti-football or whatever he was saying. Yeah,
and it was absolute rubbish because we had the best chances in that game and could have won it. And didn't park the bus. We're not capable of parking the bus. The same way you criticise Spurs and the Only Fools and Horses car. We have something similar. We don't have a bus at all.
You have a cart and horse. You have a chariot in the back.
Exactly. We got a unicycle, mate. There's no point in us parking that anywhere. We're not going to get the job done. So we just did a defensively solid job on the day, and they didn't like it because we didn't, part the Red Sea like they wanted us to. And Man City have got previous with this. They've done similar to us when we've had defensively stout performances against them. They've done similarly last season, if you remember, with Real Madrid. They were coming out complaining and crying because Real Madrid didn't go for it because they apparently are obliged to. It's just typical salt, man. So I don't believe it. And I think the people that say Arsenal would have done that with 11 men, look, don't get me wrong. You guys have done some park the bus like tactics in certain games before. But like you and other Arsenal fans who want to see variety, Turkish, for example, I know on the Big Six says the same thing. This is good. This is what champions do. And back in the day, before Pep ruined football, this is what pundits also would say. They would turn around and say that is a mark of a champion team, a winning team, to go when your back's against the wall and grind it out and get a result. You weren't expected to go and win at your title rivals every single season. That was not reality of football. So I think it's very harsh, and also at the same time, there's no proof in that same game or evidence to show that you would have parked the bus. Because like you said, in the first half, you guys were way more aggressive and way more expansive than we expected you to be. And it was paying off. It was paying dividends, right? You were 2-1 up and that sending off happened. So, you know what? I think it's just some rival fans being a bit salty. And to be honest, it's a weird salt because I don't think you guys have anything to be ashamed about, even if you did park the bus with 11 men when you're 2-1 up away. Teams do that sometimes because you want to get the result. And so I don't understand it. It's being used against you guys when actually it's like a mark of respect. And it's a sign of your progression, the fact that you're able to be defensively strong enough to even do that. Because Kolasinac, who else was some of your disgraceful defenders at the time? What's his name? Mustafi. All of these useless centre backs that you used to have, you never could have parked the bus before. In the last 10, 15 years, you never had a strong enough defence to do that. Now you do. Be proud of it, mate. The fact that you're able to keep world-class strikers like Haaland quiet last season, and for the most part in this game also quiet. I think that's a huge compliment, man. So yeah, I don't know why people are using that, and I understand why Arsenal fans are getting a bit rattled by it, but it's bound to happen. It's definitely people acknowledging the strength of you guys. You guys are here. And
it's just people finding whatever they can to say to annoy rival fans, right? It doesn't really matter what happens. If we were playing the most attacking football but letting more goals in, they call us like Ange, right? And do the high line for life.
Exactly.
I'm loving high line instead and all that, right? Like that's the conversation we'd be having right now. And if we're more defensively solid, they say that we're playing Tony Pulis ball and that he's Paella Pulis and all this stuff, right? Like it's just them trying to rattle us. And I get it. It's a sign, from my point of view, it's a sign of respect. Because when you're in the mud, no one even has to say nothing about you, right? Like when Man United were in the mud at the beginning, we were mocking you, but now people don't really bother as much because it's not, you don't need to put the knife in any further, right? He's already dead and all that, right? You don't need to touch them. Same thing for when Chelsea were, spending billions of pounds and, you had Matisse on streams basically crying, looking at the people that are coming into his team. We don't need to say nothing because we're not bothered. But the fact that everyone's getting so rattled about the way that we play and that, and the way that our manager behaves and this, that, and the other, to me, it's just like a confirmation. Number one, that our fans really have pissed people off. I don't know what, I don't spend enough time on X or whatever, but whatever our fans have been doing for the last 15 years has got people rattled to the point where they have to come after us, even if they're like, got absolutely no, involvement in the challenge, in the title race, whatever. They've all just gone against us. So that's number one. But number two is that we must be doing something right? When rival fans are all trying to come after you, generally speaking, and if you're winning and if you're challenging, it's because they're a bit salty, a bit jealous of what you've been doing. And this is why I say I'm cool with United fans, because you guys are, you're successful enough that you ain't got to come after anyone. You already know your place in the, the footballing history, the Premier League history of this country. You don't have to come after us, right? But when you hear Liverpool fans who, let's be honest, have been absolutely crap up until Klopp and have been the joke of the league, they're trying to pile on. Man City, who are still trying to legitimize what they've done, essentially, right? And try and look at the fact, get everyone away from the fact that they basically bought the league and have, in the process, got 115 charges that they're now trying to fight, right? Then you've got Chelsea, who are absolutely in the mud, same kind of thing. Bought the league with a Russian oligarch. Now they're trying to prove that they can do it without him, right? So I get it. All of these they have to try and legitimize their club's standing in history because of the way that they've earned things. They don't feel like they really deserve any of the credit that they're getting. And with Tottenham, it's just a joke because they've never won. They barely ever win a trophy. And what their trophy cabinet is literally been empty for the last 15 years or whatever it's been since their 2008 bloody Carabao Cup win or whatever the crap is that they were winning. So to me, it just goes to show it's all the insecure ones that don't really know where their club stands in history or they've got something to be insecure about are trying to come after Arsenal fans. Man United lot, they don't care. You guys have won enough Champions Leagues and Premier Leagues to not be bothered by it. But it's all of these other little rats that are coming out of the woodwork and saying, oh, Pulis ball, terrorist football and all this other stuff. Bro.
I don't know why Liverpool fans are on you guys. Get back in your
box, lads.
I don't know why Liverpool fans are on you guys because really they're with us. I know they've had struggle for 30 years, but they had such a good 80s and 70s and stuff like that they're with us. They don't have a reason really to come at you guys. They shouldn't anyway, because really United,
they've got their
Liverpool,
nights
and
in
Arsenal,
Istanbul and all that, and
United, Arsenal, and Liverpool are the traditional powerhouses of English football, right? We have been and probably will be at least for another 10, 15 years until City or Chelsea get up there with us in the numbers scale. And so I don't know. I don't get that. The other teams, I get it. I think it pretty much is what you said. And it's just, trying to deflect away and look for ways to try and negate some of the great work you guys are doing. I just think it's Arsenal were in such a good place. That game was such a positive for you, and even the last minute goal, the way they were celebrating it, I think it really shows how far you guys have come. It's been a great 3 years. All right, you need trophies. I'm not getting away from that. I do think some of the criticism about
100%.
Some of the fans going big too early, I understand, but go back to the Ole Gunnar Solskjaer quotes. Look at the league. The league tells you more than some trophies. I do believe it. As much as I've enjoyed Carabao and FA Cup wins in the last couple of years with Ten Hag, I need us to be doing better in the league. And I think when we do, it will be a better sign of our team progressing. So I think that's what it comes down to. And you guys have done that really well. So I think it's the content game. It's the rivalry game. It's what people feel like they have to do. And yeah, unfortunately also, there are some Arsenal fans, like there are some United fans, that make content that have got under people's skin, and I don't know if they'll ever get out of people's skin. So therefore, I think United and Arsenal are the target of a lot of slander. It just, we kind of deserve it for how poor we've been. You guys don't really deserve it anymore because you're playing really well, but it's still lingering with you. So it's just one of them things, I think. Let's get on to the last thing before we go on to the United game, and that's obviously Bernardo's come out with some shots. Haaland obviously was caught on camera chatting a lot of grease to some of your youth players. Skelly, I think, caught a little bit of it. Gabriel was obviously scuffling with him. He was obviously shouting at Jesus at the end, telling him to F off. He told Arteta to be humble, stay humble, or something along them lines. There's a lot of trash talking, and this rivalry is starting to build on the pitch with the players. What do you think about that? Because I know there's some people that are ultra sensitive that are saying Bernardo and Haaland went too far with their comments. What do you make of it all?
I don't think they went too far. I mean, I do think that they were both disrespectful, and I'm going to say that the most disrespectful action really was the way that Haaland spoke to Arteta. But at the same time, you know, I remember other players beefing managers before, so I can't get too sad about it. And really, me and you had discussed this previously, right? That rivalry has to come from, in most cases, from the managers or players having beef, right? And from there, it spills over into other places, right? You know, whether it's Wenger and Fergie fighting, or if it's Vieira and Roy Keane, wherever the niggle starts, it spreads elsewhere, and it spreads into the fans pretty quickly. I think today or yesterday was the start of a proper rivalry between us. And when I say that, I mean a rivalry where we hate each other. And to me, it's actually they are legitimizing our challenge. I think the way that Pep always tries to do it is he doesn't want to talk about it. He doesn't want to make it anything bigger than it is, because he's trying to keep it away from that. Like, he's trying to keep it very far away from, oh, it's us against you. We're not going to bring any emotion into the game. And he's been really successful in that. And I think that's part of the reason why they love Liverpool so much, because Liverpool were good little boys. They didn't say anything bad. They didn't try and take it too far. You know, they knew their place. They were submissive and let themselves be dominated, right? And that's totally fine. But that's clearly not how Arteta wants to be. I think he showed last year with the Disgracia. My man's willing to come out on the front foot. Even if it's going to get himself in trouble, he's going to come out and he's going to put people in their place. He's going to complain about the things he needs to complain about. He's going to try and kick the ball away from Kevin De Bruyne. He's going to do all these different things. And it's clear that he's going to use whatever tactic he can to get a win. And I'm totally fine with that, right? Because that is the thing that Arsenal have been accused of more than anything over the last 20 years, is that we got no backbone, right? Since Vieira and all of our big dogs left, we've had nothing. There's not been nothing about us. We've been passing the ball into back of the net, playing reasonably nice football, but no substance, no grit about us, right? So I'm fine to see that. But that's my whole point, is that it's pretty clear that now that they're so rattled, they actually do see us as a threat. Because if Pep can't even, get them to wind their neck in and be calm, I think it's going to turn into something. And I think, Pep, as much as he's going to try to play it down, I don't think he can put everything back in Pandora's box now. You think Gabriel's going to forget what he did, what Haaland did, bouncing the ball off the back of his head? You think, right? You think that Havertz is going to forget about Rodri diving on the ground like a little, like he'd broken his leg, and then he does actually go and break his bloody ACL after that? Talk about bloody karma, right? Like, this is what I'm saying. I don't think any of that can be put back. So I think genuinely this has shown yesterday was the beginning of something that is going to go on for a long time and possibly be a little bit ugly. And for me, I just see it as a positive sign. There was disrespect there. I think Bernardo, you've come to expect it from him now, right? He's been saying stuff about Liverpool. He's been saying stuff about other clubs. He would prefer a team that he's a rat, and he prefers a good little boy, right? That's totally fine. He's lucky to still be in that team, to be fair. So let him say what he needs to say. But also don't forget that you lot started this, because Rodri was the first one to come out last season after we played you at the Etihad and we apparently parked the bus. You was the first one to come out and say what we were doing was, again, like Virgil van Dijk, right? Salty egg yolk, telling us that we were anti-football and that, you've got no respect for us and all this other stuff. So when you say that about us, what do you expect us to do? Again, you want us just to be Liverpool and say, oh, okay, it's fine. We'll be good little boys and we won't answer back. Nah. Right? You might have one of the greatest managers of all time. I don't give a shit. And neither do our players. Right? If you didn't have the financial doping, the alleged financial doping that you've been doing for the last 12 years, would you still be where you are? Because I remember you getting relegated. Right? Big Steve wants to talk about, have you ever done a treble? Have you ever done 4 in a row? Yeah. Have you ever been relegated, lad? Because you definitely have.
Man's been in the Vanarama.
Exactly.
Head loss.
Exactly.
Head loss.
You was playing in a Johnson's Paint trophy. You was lucky to even get into the getting into the third round of the FA Cup. You was having to do qualifiers, and you're trying to chat to us about any of that. No, right? Give it 15 more years. Let's see if you can beat the 115 charges, and then get back to me, lad. But I don't want to hear it, and I don't want to hear Arsenal fans complain about it either. The game is the game. This is what we wanted. We got them into an emotional battle. This is where we can get some emotion out of them and see if they can crack. See if they're all they're cracked up to be. Let's see if they can do it with under some real pressure, under some real Towsbury. Let's see if they can do it.
Yeah, I love it, man. I love all this. I love your reaction to it. I love the players' reaction to it. I want to try and get the managers, beefing each other as well, because that would just be the absolute icing on the cake if Arteta starts poking Pep in the eye and stuff like that. That's what I want to see. There's nothing I loved more than that Mourinho bloody Pep battle as well, because Mourinho just absolutely scuffed him for 4 years and made him go on a sabbatical. And this is the thing. Mourinho doesn't get credit for that. That was one of his greatest achievements ever.
He's a giant killer.
He forced Pep to lose all of his hair, go on a sabbatical, and he hit him for 100 points with Real Madrid. Honestly, Klopp gets all these plaudits because of his big gnashes and his fist pumps and his hugs and that. But Mourinho gets left out of that because Mourinho did that plus more when he was Real Madrid manager. I think that he doesn't get the credit for it. So if Arteta can start pulling Pep into it, that'll be the icing, because the players are on each other already. The fans, you saw the big Steve, little Steve, tiny Turkish beef on Big Six. That was beautiful. It's all kicking off now. And I love it, man. This is Kevin Keegan. I love it. I'd love it. Type settings, because this is proper rivalry. And
this is Mourinho calling Wenger a voyeur. Like, this is, we're getting back to the prime era, boys. Let's go.
Yes, I love it, man. It's beautiful. So yeah, this just makes me, that game and all the fallout from it and everything, I can't wait for the reverse fixture at the Emirates when it comes around. I think it's in January or Feb. But bloody hell, I can't wait for it. It's going to be a humdinger.